Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Big Blue News Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Beasmore, and of course, we have our co-host here, Nolan Fleming. And today we have a guest again, right, Nolan?
Yeah, we do, don't we? Former Kentucky kicker, just this past year, Matt Ruffolo. Matt, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
hmm And last year, whenever I was hosting the podcast by myself, I started out the season with special teams with good old former punter Max Duffy. So now we have Matt Ruffalo on the podcast. But let's begin
Wow,
now.
I'm honored to follow him.
You're honored to follow him. I'm glad to hear.
I'd feel a little pressured, dude. Like Max is a personality, but like, hey, you spread your wings, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Max is one of those free-spirited, is not really afraid to say anything type of guy.
Yeah, I did love Max Duffy last year on the podcast. He was really funny and sarcastic.
For
But all
sure.
right, let's get into it. Before we get into your playing career at Kentucky, what was your recruitment process like for you in high school?
It was kind of actually different for the majority of probably I'd say SEC or D1 football players. So I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I went to Archbishop Alter. Pretty good high school. We got our head coach here at Dom Sites, and then our assistant coach who helps us with recruiting, Coach John Fantuzzo. I was only getting recruited by smaller D1 schools. I had offer from Ball State, the University of Dayton. I kind of had a look from IU, but nothing much, and then Toledo. And so signing day actually passed, and I wasn't signed with anyone because I was always hoping for something bigger. I always wanted to play something bigger, have a bigger challenge for myself, and so it's kind of a fluke. I was at a high school basketball game for my school, and my dad texted me. He was like, "Hey, there's this last chance type combine, I guess you'd say, for like Division 2 and 3." And I was like, "Dad, come on, I'm not going to go play Division 2 or 3." And it's nothing against those guys who go play D2 and D3. It's pretty much just the same as playing D1 as far as time commitment. And so he was just like, "Just go to it." So I went, and it was funny. Our coach that helps us with recruiting, he was there, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" Thinking I shouldn't have been there. And I was just like, "Well, my dad told me to go. I came. I kicked for some of the D2 and 3 schools, and the coaches would come up to me and they're like, 'Hey, you got a pretty decent leg. Like, you got any offers?' And I tell them like the bigger offers I had, not huge ones, but from the schools that I had. And they're just like, 'Why are you here again?' And they're like, they literally just be like, 'Hey, good to meet you, but I know you're not coming here.' And but so back to my coach, and I was telling him like I was struggling getting in touch with these big schools. For most people, when you're not a big time recruit, especially a specialist, they don't know that it's hard to get discovered pretty much unless you're one of these top guys, especially being a kicker.
Yeah.
Getting recruited is pretty hard, and so I was trying to get in touch with these schools. I'm sending them to basically the whatever email they have on their site, and I later come to find out that basically the guys who watch that are like our student managers or the student video people. And nothing against them, but I mean they're fresh into college. What are they going to know about recruiting guys, especially
Shout out
kickers?
student video managers.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to
Hey,
him.
I love them. Christian, our video guy, love him, and then all the recruiting guys in that office, great guys. But I honestly, I those guys at all these schools probably aren't looking at kickers. They're probably looking for the next big thing to pass on to a coach. And so my coach actually, he's been at multiple, I'd say colleges, Pittsburgh, Florida State. He was with them on the national championship team as one of like their scout recruiter guys. Panthers, all those schools. He knows people everywhere. And he's like, "Dude, why didn't you come to me earlier?" And I was like, there was a miscommunication. He's like, whips out his phone right there. I'm naming off the schools that I tried getting in touch with, and I named Kentucky. And he's like, "Oh, perfect. I'm best friends with Coach House, the Matt House, the D coordinator, LSU's D coordinator now."
Yeah.
Literally whips out his flip phone. This guy has a flip phone. I think he just upgraded to a smartphone now, and whips out his flip phone and literally calls Coach House right there. Coach House picks up, and he's like, "Hey, I got this kicker. He's pretty good. You guys need anyone? Got anyone?" And at the time, they had Austin McGinnis and then Miles Butler behind him, no one else. And so they put me in touch. I got in touch with the special teams quality control coach, Leah Matsakis, and had a call with him. He's like, "Hey, you got some pretty good film. Why don't you come down for a visit?" Went down for a visit, and this is when Kentucky's facility was a year old. All right, I was there for 6 years, so 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I go have the visit, and he's like, "Hey, we'd love to have you walk on, prefer walk on," which at the time I was totally fine with. I was just like, once I saw the facility, I saw the stadium, I was just like, this is like the type of environment I want to come into and be able to come in and compete. And that was the biggest thing for me was kept asking was like, am I going to get a chance to compete? Because I know at some programs when you're a walk on, it really doesn't happen. Also, by the way, shout out Cole Lanter. Love that guy who got the scholarship the other day. Walk
Oh
ons
yeah,
for
I
life.
did. Yeah,
Love that.
that was nice to see. I was very happy to see that we're doing that now.
I love it now. They've started to kind of do it a little more.
Right. I like the videos. They're always really cool.
Yeah, I find
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But walk-ons at other schools, like for example, I had one of my teammates, he had a buddy that was a walk-on at Georgia. At Georgia, they literally have a separate locker room for their walk-ons. Now I get it, it's Georgia and Alabama, but when in retrospect, we're all the SEC. We're all going to have nice facilities. They're all going to have people wanting to compete and be on this team. What's nice about Kentucky is when you're a walk-on, no matter what type of walk-on you are, it's pretty much a scholarship and walk-on guys at Kentucky. You're treated the same. And you see it now more with these videos, for example, the other day, where they're giving guys chances to come in, prove themselves. And hey, if it doesn't work out, you're still at the University of Kentucky. And that was the thing for me. I wanted to go to a school that if football did not work out, I was still going to love it there. So that was
Shout out University of Kentucky. Thank you for letting me attend this school. I don't know. I guess the requirements have gone down or something since they're letting me live here. But
Yeah. I got accepted into UK, but I went to obviously WKU for broadcasting. They have a great broadcasting school, so that's why I ended up at good old WKU instead of UK. But
nothing wrong with that. You just had to climb a mountain every day.
Yeah, climb a mountain. You're not wrong.
I don't even know if I've never been out there, so I have no clue what's out there.
Yeah.
You know what? You're probably better off not at the moment. I know, no disrespect to Western, but like, if you wanted to climb Mount Everest, it's about the same experience. So
basically. Yeah, they need to though schedule a rematch between WKU and UK in football for sure. I want that rivalry.
I love how they're doing the EKU again. That was my
I'm very happy for that.
Year.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I love doing I've always been a big guy for having, I guess, in-state rivals besides Louisville. We're going to have that all the time. But if kind of those smaller D1 schools, instead of having maybe an FCS school, maybe swap in. I know EKU's FCS, but I hear they might be going FBS soon. I've heard a rumor on that. I have no clue if it's true or not.
Nice.
But you get a bigger FCS or a bigger or a smaller FBS school like WKU.
Right. Yeah. Didn't we play Murray here a few years ago? We played Murray, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Nice. Because that was like right after the Florida game in 2018, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine though if like UK played against WKU whenever Bailey Zappi was still there? Oof, that would have been a good game.
Would have been fun.
Obviously, UK would have still won, but yeah, it would have been cool to see.
I love how we're talking about this just so casually, and literally someone who was on the freaking team is like just sitting right there.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think it'd been fun, Matt?
100%. I mean, like I said, I want to have, no offense to FCS schools, I want to get rid of the terrible FCS school we play every year. I know it's to get that win. Like, we want to get those 6 wins. But in my opinion, UK is past this point where we don't need the 6 wins anymore to make a bowl game, all right? We're getting those 6 wins consistently, at least when I was there, all right? Except for the COVID year, that was an anomaly.
Yeah.
Whatever. We forget about that year. But every other year, I mean, they set the line, I think, for over-under our wins 6.5. We always, hammer that bet all the time. Hammer the over. I mean, if you're not hammering the over, there's something wrong with you.
What's the over-under this year?
I don't know.
I heard it was 6.5, but
if it's 6.5, I'm gonna be putting down something on that because that's like you were just saying, that's easy.
I know last year was 7.5, and Max Duffy said bet the under on that, and sadly he was right. I had 9 wins last year, and then obviously that sadly
Max Duffy would definitely say that. Not rooting for the Cats. That's all right. He actually coaches at Murray State now.
Yeah, I know.
Which is wild.
What is he? I was just reading about that. Isn't he like a video coordinator or something like that? Or
allegedly, like to get him on staff, that was like the only position he had open. Coach Hood, because Coach Hood used to be special teams guy at UK. I guess he is now their video coordinator. So hopefully he takes a note from our video guy, Christian, and does a good job there.
Shout out Christian. Remember that whenever he's the special teams coach at Kentucky, and like, I don't know anything about that, obviously, but like, that would be really funny if he were the special teams coach here. You know, just like,
dude.
imagine the personality you get in the coaching staff. That'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be wild. He would not be like Coach Stoops could not allow him to do press conferences because when he's a coach, that guy again, he has no filter.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen it on his podcast. Nothing. You can't have a coach. You know, someone like coaches. You know, you got to respect them, and they got to be respectful for everyone, right?
Right.
I don't know if Max could go on there and keep a filter, but hey, that'd be enjoyable for us. I'd love it.
Yeah,
dude, Pin It Deep, legit one of the most underrated podcasts I've ever heard in my life. I loved every second of that.
Yeah,
I got to go on that I think twice or maybe once, and
I remember that now. Yeah, that was a good episode too. Yeah,
we what's so funny, which I love about podcasts, like at the time I didn't know, like I'm not a huge podcast guy. Now I am, but like in college I wasn't, and I thought it was just like a live recording. People would just tune in because he did it above KS Bar because they have a room up there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like in front of an audience or something. We go in this room. We might have had some, liquid courage there and stuff. But we go in this room and we're just talking. But what's so funny is so I guess it's a recording, right? So the amount of things when we were there being the specialist, because all of us were together at UK, that we had to cut out was absurd because like we'd say something and they would like pause and they tell one of their guys who's the sound guy, he's just like, they're like, hey, you got to cut that part out. So
have we ever done that?
Time.
Have we ever done that, Chris? I don't think we've done that. I think we've redone a couple because of audio issues. Maybe.
Yeah, audio issues, or I said something like dumb at the very beginning of the podcast. Now it's like I did not like that. So
yeah, I do remember one in particular that we won't talk about right now. But that was rough. I've had a couple on my ass, whatever you want to call it. I know I've had a couple on there where someone says something really stupid. I was like, shut up, like shut out, Lane. Yeah. I just like, dude, watch it. I don't want to get taken down or anything, dude. Like, great, like, come on.
Yeah,
for sure.
Could you just talk about though playing in your first collegiate game, kicking your first field goal, making it, and how that was like for you?
It was wild. I get this question a lot because it was basically I was kind of just thrown in there. So Chance Poor came in after me and he started over me. And then so we were I think we were 4 games in. And so the game before that, we all know that the Florida game, just didn't go right that way. And so he was kind of already on thin ice. We were competing before the season. And we go down there to Mississippi State and he makes his first field goal and the next 2 he misses, and he was kind of hurt after the second miss. So I don't know if I got to go in because he was hurt or maybe he was, past 2 games he had some misses and it was kind of a neck and neck battle. So it was around, I think, the 4th quarter and we're down by 11. And I just remember my special teams coach just points at me. Doesn't say anything, just points at me, kind of like you're going in.
That's epic. That's so epic.
Yeah. And because the holder, Grant McInnes, at the time, he came over. He's like, dude, just start warming up the net. And I'm like, okay, I'll warm up the net. And thing is, like, I'd occasionally just go mess around in the net just to stay loose from time to time. He's like, yeah, just go warm up the net. So I was like, all right, I'll go over there. And then the coach points at me, and I was like, there's no shot after Chance hadn't been doing too hot that I'm going in for a field goal. Why would you send the second string guy in there after we already missed for the 4th field of the game after we already missed 2? So we get down there. I believe it was a 27-yard field goal. And I just remember before we were going on, I always go out to the sideline. We always have to look for Stoops, see if he's like, we're kicking a field goal or not. He does something hilarious. Like he'll kick his foot. And it's like the worst, motion ever. Yeah. He basically just kicks his foot. And so we get down there. He kicked his foot and it points out and says, you're going out there. And so I'm like, okay. And so I just run out there and I line up. And honestly, I think people get it wrong all the time when they say they're not nervous or they are nervous. everyone's nervous. That's like natural. It's a human thing. I'd say I was nervous, but probably not as nervous as probably the next game I started in because everything just happened so quickly. You go out there, it's like you can't waste your time. You got a play clock. And I just remember Mississippi State, the cowbells are insane down there. It's basically just a constant ringing in your ear, which honestly is kind of nice because then it's just one constant noise. It's not like it's some crazy noise. But I just remember my biggest fear was like getting blocked or not getting to the ball on time. And so ball snapped, kicked it, went in, and I was just like, wow, this is fun. Like that was pretty cool. And I mean, unfortunately we lost the game, but I still loved it because I mean I got to put us within a touchdown. And it was my first field goal. But I think it was just everything happened so fast, fourth quarter, field goal, game over. It was just like, holy cow, I just did that. But the next game, I think I was a little more nervous because it was going into South Carolina and it was my first start.
Okay, so this was going to lead to my next question, but I've completely forgotten which game it is, so I don't remember. I thought you had a kick in like 2019 that was like 50 yards or something more than that.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Yeah, I went Mississippi State, South Carolina, and
Was it Arkansas?
I believe Arkansas was at home next.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about that kick because that seemed to be kind of the one that really, put a lot of people started having a lot of confidence in you at that point.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
How satisfying was that?
Dude, that kick was insane because I remember in the game, it was my first start at Kroger Field, so it was first home game. So I think the pressure's more on you at home. People think it's away, but it's like you don't know anyone in the away stands. It is what it is. You hate them already in a nice way. But like at home, it's like these are like your fans. You want to do well for them. But actually, I remember I missed actually in the first half a 47-yard field goal, barely tailed a little left. And I remember running off the field, and I won't name the player because you guys know him pretty well. He wasn't a specialist or anything. And obviously we'd been struggling that season, right? And so it was my first miss ever. And I remember running off the field, and there's this one player. He's on the defense. He's running out there, and he's like, "Make your effing kicks." And I'm just like, okay, so this is what it's like to miss. All right, I didn't know what it was like to miss yet. I knew what it was like to make it.
Right.
And I go back over there, and for some reason that game, I was just super confident in that game. I was just like, you know what, hey, because I really hit the ball well. It just happened to, tail maybe a foot or two left. And so actually Grant McKinnis, the holder, started high-fiving me because he thought he went in or the ball went in. And so I came running off, and that whole halftime, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to make the next one. We're already moving on. We're going to the next one. So we go out there for that second field goal, and it was actually supposed to be 45, but Austin Dotson, our lineman, had a false start. And I remember I look over, Coach Grant wanted to go for it. I give Stoops the thumbs up like, hey, I'm good. It's 50. I'm confident. Anything inside 50 that year, I was like, I'm confident. And take the ball, it going down Broadway, and I'm just like, oh, wow. And I do some really weird thing with like my right arm. I can't describe what it was. And I think I started backing up or something. I honestly don't know what I was doing. And I just remember I made it, and the whole place went nuts. There's this cool picture of Brennan Bates like lifting me up in the air. It was just like I don't know how to describe it. When someone's like lifted up, they like a figure skater getting lifted up in the air, but it wasn't that pretty. And then Calvin Taylor, who's like 6'9", banging me on the head. And I remember getting over to the sideline. The amount of times I was banged on my helmet, like that's how a kicker gets concussed. It's making a field goal and then high-fiving your teammates and banging helmets with them. Yeah. So, but that was just insane. And then I go to the sideline, and it's a really cool thing that me and my dad did throughout my whole career, and even in high school. He and I would I'd find him in the stands no matter where he was, and we'd always give a thumbs up to each other. He'd give a thumbs up, and I'd give it back after every make. So really, awesome. Really cool. That's probably still my favorite field goal to this day. So
yeah, I think even like it from a fan perspective, I think that's an underrated one. I just remember like 15-year-old be watching that go in and going like, oh well, we got a kicker now. Like, look,
yeah,
we're in good shape.
Well, it was really cool too.
By the way.
No, I love Chance. I mean, Chance was my holder for 2 years. I think it worked out perfectly the way it did, and I think he was totally fine with it and everything. But it was really cool in practice. A Raiders scout happened to be there, and he's like, he came up to me, and I'm like, "What is a Raider scout doing? I'm a junior. I just started playing." And he was like, "Hey, that was a really nice field goal, man. It changed the tide of the game. Just kind of shifted the momentum because I think we were down. Don't quote me, but I think we were down 13-7 maybe or something like that.
That sounds right. I remember it being really important though.
And it just kind of just shifted the momentum. We might not put us up, but it shifted the momentum. And I remember we ended up winning. Was it 24-22 or something to do with Jared Lorenz? I know it was like they did something 22, and the score happened to line up with that too.
Oh, right, that. Wasn't that also Lynn Bowden's first game?
Yeah,
It was his second game. Well, yes, technically his first start as the quarterback because they put him in at the end of South Carolina.
Yeah,
right, because he wore number 3 for Terry Wilson, didn't he, in that one?
Oh yeah.
He did do that. I see that. That's a more eventful game than we even remembered. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think we ended the game at the 22-yard line too, or something like that.
There was
it was just all meant to be.
Yeah.
Good mojos that game for sure. Just talking about the banging of the helmets, it reminded me of Baker Mayfield, where he'll just like hit his helmet, against players and teammates, and it gave me a good laugh whenever he brought that up.
I didn't do that.
Ouch, dude.
Could you talk about the 2020 season though, just with COVID and how it could have potentially impacted the team that year?
Yeah, it was weird. The whole vibe was weird because obviously when you go to places you had no fans. Now I will say this: everywhere else in the SEC, they kind of push the 50% capacity a little more. So, yeah, I mean UK, good for you guys. You follow the rules. Love you, UK. But everywhere else you'd go, I remember the Auburn game. Really kind of didn't feel like it was COVID yet. Like you could kind of tell. But I remember looking up like all the way in like the rafters or the top deck. And I know everywhere else in the SEC, the pledges of fraternities always are wearing their sport coats and khakis or whatever it may be. And there's just a massive like group of them up there. And guys are just like, oh, look at that. That's a COVID spreader right up there and stuff like that. But the season was weird because there'd be games where, like, for example, I had to sit out a game because I had COVID. I had no symptoms, but they were just like, hey, sorry. And I remember that week too, I tried sneaking in the baseball field overlooks our practice field. And I know you're technically not supposed to go out during quarantine, but this was like day 7. I'm literally going nuts.
Yeah.
And I go in my car, no one's around. And I go watch from the top of the hill. And I remember the specialist. This would be the specialist. The specialist noticed my car. And he noticed I was sitting in it. And they all start pointing up and like laughing at me. Word got to our trainer. And our trainer, Gabe, calls me and he's just like, hey, what are you doing, man? I'm like, what? I'm going nuts. Let's let me watch practice. Like I'm missing it this much right now. And I had to leave at that point because I was caught. And I literally like we have 13 periods in practice, 12 like 13. I'm literally been there for like maybe 1-2 periods and I already was caught. I was like, seriously, I tried keeping a low profile. I was like, should I have rented a car? Should I have done something different? What's going on?
Dude, you could have pulled a heist in that one, man. That would have been crazy.
I know. But like, for example, when we played Alabama, I mean, what was cool about UK, and it's kind of like our blue collar mentality, we were not going to forfeit a game. We weren't going to, or not forfeit, but like not play a game. We were going to play all 10 that we were given or in the bowl game. We were going to do all that. So going into Alabama's a powerhouse this year anyway.
That was Mac Jones, wasn't it?
Yeah, and like Devontae Smith was kind of a newcomer. And I just remember we go down there and we had like 25 guys out. And I'm just like, all right, here we go. And honestly, I didn't really notice it until we started playing. I was like, oh wow, where's this guy? Like, for example, like Chris Rodriguez. I didn't know he didn't travel with the team. I completely just missed it. And I was just like, where's C-Rod? They're like, dude, he has COVID. I'm like, oh, dang. But that game was interesting. I mean, we punted 11 times, and I remember Colin actually, that was his first game he ever played in Goodfellow because Max had COVID that game too. And he punts to the first guy, whoever the returner is, for like the first 5, 6, 7 kicks. And then they decide to put another guy in there. Well, the second guy is another 5-star who's better than the first guy, but he was younger. And so the return even got better. So throughout the game, you think when they're putting in, younger guys who haven't seen time yet, No, it's Alabama. But
Bryce Young too. That was he kind of had a
oh
couple
yeah,
plays in that game where he kind of proved that he was, Bryce Young, I guess. So
but I think the good thing that came out of the COVID year is it kind of showed us as players. I kind of believe in this philosophy. You got to play like the big dogs to see actually how good you are. Now,
mm,
obviously, the Alabama game, we got killed, yes. But the thing is, like the first quarter or so, we were able to keep up with them and everything. And
yeah,
so I think it showed us that year as we played teams from the West that are like these powerhouse guys. Like the Auburn game, we should have won. It just happened, didn't go in our favor.
I'm
Daniel
glad I'm
off a long
glad you
touchdown.
said that because I wasn't gonna. But the
Yeah.
Chris Rodriguez thing and all that. Yeah,
Oh, for sure. And so like I think it showed the UK program as Coach Stoops continues to build it that we can compete with these guys. So it's going to be interesting to play against Alabama this year at home and see how we match up against them.
Hey, yes, no,
Chris, don't you dare.
we want Bama.
Oh man, dude, don't be doing that.
Yeah,
All right,
you'd better not do that. It's going to end up being pretty
you
terrible
tell
if we get that
Nick
going
Saban
here.
hears that, yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're done.
Even Kirby Smart, don't even start the "We Want Georgia" stuff either. That's a bad idea too. I mean, it's just
That's a
gonna,
horrendous idea, all right?
yeah.
Yeah.
When is it gonna happen here? When's the "We Want Kentucky" gonna start happening? Because I have a feeling that had that happened, I have a feeling that we would be better this year for that game.
Well, I mean, I kind of you got to start somewhere, and you see it with like Missouri every year. Like I guess where Missouri's like big time rival or
it
something.
appears that way. It really does.
No offense to them, I think they have a decent program and everything. But I guess like they think they can beat us or something. I don't know. It's now South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina's doing the guy who sings or does Sandstorm, the DJ.
Yeah.
I forget his name. I guess our game is that game for them.
Yep.
Speaking of South Carolina, they had this one video that I thought was just the worst and cheesiest thing ever, where they mocked the Sopranos opening. Have either of you seen the Sopranos?
Yep.
They did the opening. I love that show, by the way, one of the greatest shows ever made. They did the opening of the Sopranos with Shane Beamer driving the car, but then they like replace, got yourself a gun or whatever with like something really, really stupid and like, go fight for the day or something like that. I don't remember what it was. I wish I could. But I remember watching that and just cringing the whole time. Like I think Shane Beamer thinks he's just the coolest guy.
Exactly. And that's funny that you mentioned that because I just remember last year, like obviously our game, the fact that they were so happy beating us just shows how like that's the we want to beat Kentucky mentality or we want Kentucky. But little did they know, our quarterback was out that game. Like you barely beat us. We gave you an opening touchdown that was like the fumble at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
You barely beat us. And I think they made some video because I think Stoops wouldn't say accidentally, kind of mocked Shane Beamer for whatever he did.
Like at the beginning of the year or something, wasn't it with the sunglasses or something?
Yeah, the sunglasses, and it was just a nice little push at Shane or whatever. But the thing with South Carolina and Shane Beamer is, do I think he's a decent coach? Yeah, maybe. But I think he's so focused on his image that it's weird. I don't like seeing those videos. Why don't you just focus on winning football games? So
yeah, you're not James Gandolfini. You probably don't need to act like you are. So
you're not that guy, pal, as that video.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of one more coach. There was one more coach I was want to ask about that. Wasn't it Dan Mullen? Dan Mullen seems a lot like that. Like you talk about like you were on actually the teams that beat Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just gotta ask, 2018, what was that like? Like what was the locker room? Was it exactly what it looked like or was it even crazier?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think that was the first year we beat Florida in like 30 years, correct?
Right.
So I mean, that just being a part of that was so cool. Because I wasn't playing yet. And I just remember like I think that was the year at Missouri. I wasn't there, but you saw the videos of it.
Yeah.
Of Stoops like going through the ceiling tile and everything and him jumping up and down. That year was just amazing because we're beating these guys and we're finally proving everyone like, hey, we're actually a team here to mess around with. And then like, for example, the second Citrus Bowl year in 2021, were we having those like major parties in our locker room like we were with Stoops crowd surfing? No, because it was more expected. We were still having fun, but it was like, all right, we should be doing this. And to be honest, both years, you really, if you look at it, not being biased, we should have gone 11-1 or 10-2.
Yeah.
We dropped
Fair.
a couple of those games that we shouldn't have, and so if we continue to have those type of years and get over that hump of, I claim the humps, this get over the Citrus Bowl hump and get a New Year's
Right.
Six Bowl, we're close to that. So
Right.
I think UK has a lot of potential there. You may see it this year. You may not. I don't know. I'm not the most expert in predicting, so don't ask. But
Welcome to the club.
Stoops is taking that he's taking the program to now where it's like, all right, let's start shooting for not just the Music City Bowl. Let's
Right.
go for the bigger ones.
Right, but did the like beating Florida though, like even the next two times, like last year, year before, and all that, was it as big of a deal as it was in 2018? Like, was everyone, as hungry for that win, maybe as they were in 2018, or was it less, or was it more like we beat Florida, that's our thing?
So I know in 2018, I can't tell you what the locker room was like, because if you weren't on the travel squad, you don't get to go to the away games. They only take 70 guys out of the 125. But I just know that beating them for the first time at home in so long. I mean, we rushed the field and everything.
Yeah, I was there. I didn't
that
get
was
on the
just
field, but it was great.
insane. It took me forever to get to the locker room, and the locker room was still just popping off in there.
He had like 58 guys in banana suits. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, to that first Citrus Bowl year in 2018, I'm sure the locker room was just insane. You saw the videos and everything, but when they came back and everything too, just like at practice, guys were still just going nuts because we're finally starting to prove ourselves. And then when we beat them at home, that was so much fun. I mean, rushing the field. I remember I sprinted over because I always like to shake the other specialist hands. I'll shake everyone's hand that I can, but I always it's just a specialist thing because they're like you. They're the short, small guys on the team that are good at kicking footballs. So I remember sprinting over there because I remember that kicker had a 50-yard field goal that game, although he did get blocked, thankfully.
Yeah, I remember the run back. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, hey, not a congrats, but like, hey, good game and everything, because I remember my freshman year. There was only one year we didn't play them close, but I remember my freshman year. We were up, and then things happened where we just decided not to put a guy out there on defense a couple times.
Oh boy!
And I remember they brought out like the security guards with the rope and the neon vests in the student section in anticipation that we were going to win, and those students were going to storm the field. So I remember that, and I was just like, "Don't do it again." And I think they didn't do it again. I can't recall, because once I saw that game was over and the clock was ticking down, I was like, "Those guys are rushing the field." So I sprinted across, and then it was just chaos everywhere you go. Somehow my brother didn't find me. I found my brother who rushed the field, my older brother. And I remember I went up behind him and gave him like a big old bear hug. I was like, who is this guy? And it turns around, it's just me. And I think my little brother was there too. So it was kind of just cool. But like in that whole sea of blue, it was just insane what was going on. Everywhere you look, everyone's high-fiving. Honestly, It was super hot too. I mean, and humid and everything. Everyone was just sweating. I was just like, this is great. But there was that one point I was like, all right, I need to get to the locker room.
Yeah, I get to the locker room. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounded like awful. But those three wins, I guess, for both of you, I think they eased the pain. But that 2017 game still, I just feel like a thump in my chest every time I even think about it. It still kind of hurts from a fan perspective.
Just how it happened too. Everything just did not work in our favor. Like the two times we forgot a guy. And then when we were going to be in field goal range, that we get some terrible, terrible holding call. I mean,
that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. That and the Chris Rodriguez call. That's two of the worst I've ever seen in the Kentucky game.
I'm not going to say like Austin's was going to be money and made that, but it was going to be like a little chip shot field goal, like 30, 40 yards. Yeah. Like, I think he's had some big game winners before. I think we were pretty confident him going in. And so you push him. That
run got him down to like what, the 25-yard line?
It was something like that. And whatever the call was pushed him back so far, which I couldn't believe. And then it ended up being like a 58-yard field goal. And that's just hard in general to do. And he got under it too on that game, but you can't put the blame on him. I remember seeing him in the locker room afterwards, like expecting him to be down, because remember, it's my first year. I still new to college football. I think it was like our second or third game or something. And he's like, dude, what do you want me to do in that situation? 58 yards. Like,
Right.
it really
That's
wasn't
just a
my fault
crazy
there.
kick. And I went to
And
the game the week after, and they even had him doing that game. It felt like because
oh, dude,
if
he was one of those guys that if he missed, he'd go in practice. And this was like his bad like trait he had. He'd
right,
overkick, and that's why he was hurt a lot.
mm,
But I remember he went in practice, any kick he missed, and he would
right,
go there and take like 20 kicks, same spot. Like even after the period's over, and our coach would have to go over and be like, "Hey, dude, it's all good. We know you can kick. We know you can make it. Don't hurt yourself now."
I
he's
hear
a
you.
legend around here. He needs to really be picked up by an NFL team, I thought, but
Yeah.
maybe
He
that
did,
ship
but
has sailed. But you never know.
it's his pitfall, and it's kind of my pitfall too, because I'm still trying a little bit here. Is we didn't do kickoffs. I didn't do kickoffs, and his kickoff wasn't as deep, and so
Mm,
I'll talk to my agent and stuff, and I had to make film of me doing kickoffs. But it's hard getting in the NFL just in general as a kicker. There's 32 spots, and they kind of cycle them. You kind of saw it with the other day with the Browns. Cade York got
right.
cut, and they just picked up Dustin Hopkins. Dustin Hopkins has been in the league for 7-8 years, so
Mm,
hopefully I'll get my opportunity. I don't know if Austin's still trying. This would make it his 5th or 6th year out of college.
right.
I don't know at what point does one person say, "Hey, probably time to move on" or not. But if he is still trying, hopefully he gets something too.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, we will be right back with more of the podcast in a second, but first, here's something from our sponsors. Before we get back into the podcast, I would like to announce our partnership with Prizepicks. It is a daily fantasy sports app that's completely legal here in Kentucky, and you can download it on your phone, Prizepicks, and also on your desktop, prizepicks.com. It is a great app. You can choose between 2 to 6 players and can win up to 25 times your entry. And they will also give you 100% deposit back up to $100. So if you put in $100, Prizepicks will give you $100 back, making it $200. It's a great app. I really enjoy it. And use my code UKVIDEOS to get that deposit as well. But let's get back into the podcast with Matt Ruffolo. It's been a great podcast so far. Well, welcome back into the podcast, y'all. We've got Matt Ruffalo back with us still, and we've been talking a lot about his football career, especially the Florida games over the years, and it's been really fun talking with you so far. A little bit I want to talk to you, though, about is, do you have a favorite bowl game from whenever you played at UK?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, fun fact: I've never missed in a bowl game. Just want to put that out there.
There we go.
All right. I mean, each one had some cool experience. I mean, I can go game by game here. I mean, the first one was the Virginia Tech one. We won by technically we did win 37-30, but if you remember, I had a little game-winning extra point. Just wanted to have a little humble brag there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Matt Ruffalo saved us.
What was so funny about that game was like before so we usually like to warm up on both ends, and obviously you had the Lynn Bowden little scuff before the game, if you guys remember, on the field.
Wasn't
And
that
so
come see about it or something like that? Something crazy.
That
I forget
I
what I
have no
said.
clue. No one knows, but it actually started at so since we were in Charlotte, which is the home of NASCAR, we were at a NASCAR like where they take us around the track in the race cars, and so as they were leaving, we were coming in. People don't know
Right.
the scuff actually started there. Like people never saw that one.
Right.
And someone got into it there, and they were saying stuff, and that's technically where it all started. And they saw each other on the field, and it just escalated. And what's funny about that game is technically in any other game, probably I don't know if it's conference or non-conference, but bowl games, there's kind of like there's no rules to them.
Right.
And obviously you have the basic rules of the game, but everything else, the conference rules go out the window. And technically, if it was like a home game or any type of regular season game, Lynn would have actually been kicked out of that game already before the game started. But since it was like after or before the 60-minute mark, that it didn't count or something like this, some weird rule. So we got lucky there.
Yeah.
But so that was fun because when I was warming up the other end, the Virginia strength coach or special teams coach came over us and was just like, "Hey, better get off our side once our team gets out here." And we're like, "Okay, dude, we're just warming up. Like, we'll move and get out of your way." Like, I was very courteous with people. I'd always go over there and be like, "Hey, am I in your way?" And majority of players, coaches wouldn't say a word. I don't know if they were like taken aback by opposing guy being nice to them or something.
Probably, yeah.
Because I'd always be like, "Hey, I'm in your way, man," and they wouldn't say anything. So I just assumed I'm going to take that as a no, and I just keep kicking there. But I just remember he was just yelling at us, and then our long snapper Blake Best just like, "Wow, dude." You're yelling at some college kids, and you're like a 60-year-old man. You must feel really good about yourself.
I don't know if you've
Um,
ever seen the broadcast of that game, but I swear to God, they would never shut up about Bud Foster in
Yeah.
that game.
yes, it
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 was
was
so
just,
nice beating him in his last game.
look,
was
all the respect in the world to him, lunch pail, defense, whatever. But he was never a head coach. He was defensive coordinator there for 150 years or whatever it was. Like, they would not stop talking about him. It's literally as plays were happening, they would quite literally like have split
They
screen
literally,
basically.
I actually did go watch some of the broadcasts after, and it literally just be like him the whole
Yeah.
time.
It was
And I'm just
literally
like,
there were huge plays in the game that you didn't see the whole thing of because they were just showing him like, look, let's wonder what he's dialing up in his last game ever. And I'm like, I
exactly.
don't
So
know and
It
don't
was
care.
so annoying. Whew.
to beat him in that game was just awesome, and just because the whole scuff that was going on, and we were kind of down. It was a back and forth type thing. I also had a field goal in that game, so that was a fun one. The next year was obviously the COVID year. I had 3 field goals there in that game, and what's funny about I think just UK in general, like I tell you, we have that blue collar mentality.
Right.
We'd love to somehow start beef with these teams like the week of the bowl game because you're there like a whole week.
Yeah.
And we somehow just love to start beef. I don't know why. I think it's kind of funny. I personally don't because
That is pretty
obviously
good.
I'm not trying to go out there. Anytime we get in a scuff with Louisville, you just see me standing on the outside, just like, "Ooh, what's going on?" Like I'm literally just like the typical fan. I'm not going in there because I know how to get my butt handed to me. All right, and so the NC State game that was fun because technically, I guess they were ranked and everything, and
Mm.
my field goals were important in that game. And then the following year was the Citrus Bowl year, yeah,
Yeah.
and had 2 more there. We won by 3, so. I'd say each one was good or fun to me because obviously the whole week you're there. It's a fun time to just go down with your team. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a vacation, but it's kind of like a reward for the end of the season.
Right.
You get to do all types of fun stuff and everything. So I think just winning the 4 in the row that we did and the 3 that I was got to actually play in and not miss and actually have pretty influential roles in those games. I probably couldn't pick a favorite, but just all 3 of them were fun for me.
Yeah, I remember in the NC State
Yeah,
game,
you're about to say what I'm talking about. You exactly what I was about to say.
their kicker, whew, their kicker, his name was, I forgot his first name, but I remember his
Duncan,
last name was
I believe
Dunn.
it's Chris or
Chris
Dunn.
Dunn?
Chris Dunn, not
Yeah,
Duncan.
Chris Dunn. And I remember in one of my posts, I said, "You've done missed again."
Oh no, you're thinking
Well,
about something totally different. I was about to ask which player was it on our side that pretended like he was dead after he got like shoved or
oh,
something.
I believe I want to say it was it Eccles or
Echols. Yeah, Brandon Echols, I believe.
Brandon
it was
Eccles, I remember that because I
Eccles.
remember he like got pushed and he went like that and fell.
Oh, dude, that was
Yeah,
just hilarious. I remember
I
seeing it on like
loved that.
Sports Center and
It
all
was
over
great.
Twitter. Like it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
I remember I think it was like Vito Tisdale started performing CPR on him.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
I forgot about that. But that's an underrated detail. See,
Yeah.
in performance art, I think you need to consider everything.
Yeah.
And you can't just consider the star. And dude, that was some funny stuff.
that example right there just shows kind of like our mentality in the bowl game. We know we're taking it serious. We want to win, but we also know that this game really doesn't have an influence on your season next year or whatever it
Right.
is. I'm a big guy for bowl games though.
Yeah.
And it just shows you're having fun. You're being serious, but you're also having fun at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was I honestly think I don't know if it's necessarily underrated to everybody else. Maybe it's not. The Citrus Bowl against Iowa might actually be one of the more underrated Kentucky football games out there, in my opinion.
I agree.
I 100% agree. I
I
think
know.
compared to go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry, but I know that the plays, with Rodriguez and with Wandale Robinson, I know those at the very in the last drive are really popular, really infamous, I guess. But like, no, I don't think anyone remembers anything else anymore. And that whole game was just a lot of joy.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love
no,
Fred.
it was those Citrus Bowls were fun, and I think it was downplayed a little bit compared to the first Citrus Bowl, just because first Citrus Bowl was like, we weren't expected to be here. We had a 10-win season, and then, like I've been saying, now things are expected. But I think you're right that was downplayed a little bit, especially how close it was. I mean, it's always good to beat a Big Ten team,
right.
especially. This is why I like the bowl games, because it kind of gets to show off your conference. We always love to say the SEC is the best conference.
Right.
Again, not being biased, it is. I'm from Ohio. I thought the Big Ten was the greatest thing ever until I started playing in the SEC and realized how brutal the SEC is compared to the Big Ten.
Were you an Ohio State fan?
Still am to this day.
Oh, dude, no.
Yeah, Ohio State.
Hey! I get asked this question all the time in the locker room because, like, anytime Ohio State was on, I'd be like rooting for them. Now, I'm not like some diehard fan. My little brother actually goes there right now, so I'm going to get to go to my first Ohio State game this year. I'm pretty excited for that one.
I can't be a hypocrite, Chris. I can't.
On the last podcast, you admitted that you're an Alabama football.
Yeah, I did. Oh.
But I mean, if we ever were to play them, I would so love to beat them, because then I can go home and rub it in everyone's face. I beat Ohio State. Like, even my little brother, he and I go back and forth on UK Ohio State. We know we're probably never going to get to play each other, but we always go back and forth saying, all right, I play in the SEC. UK's better. He's like, we're Ohio State. Ohio State fans have that problem. I will say that.
Penn State fans do too, and they saw what happened in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah,
exactly. They literally. I think it's just the Big Ten in general.
I think it is too. They have massive egos. Even Iowa thinks they're great. I know they won last year. Whatever. Good job. You got one back. But
yeah, you got one back when literally didn't have like two of our
didn't
best
have
players.
anybody. Literally,
congratulations.
Literally down to a guy who never played quarterback.
I didn't even play in that game. I mean, I dressed for it, but I didn't even get to see the field. We didn't score. So,
were you opposed against playing Iowa again for a second year in a row?
I think what they were going for is they thought, hey, we're having a rematch. And this is because when you really comes down to bowl games, it all comes down to the money and the area that it's in and how are we going to draw the most fans there. And I think the Music City Bowl is a great bowl. I've played it twice, beginning of my career, end of my career. They have a great hospitality team there and everything. But like I said, UK's not looking to be in that bowl anymore. Fans will travel to that game. Nashville's a lot of fun. I mean, we had fun throughout the week getting to meet the Iowa players again and stuff. It was actually funny. The previous Citrus Bowl year, it was one night we had a function or something where both teams were there, and our punter, Colin Goodfellow, somehow ended up in their specialist group chat. And he was in it for like a whole year. And so when we got to play, he eventually took himself out of it, because he's just like, I don't know why I'm in this. Then he eventually, we were playing each other again. And so we kind of knew each other. They had some newer specialists, but we just knew each other. And so it was fun. But I see the reason why they put us against each other. Were we a big fan of it? I don't know. The whole bowl game this year was just weird.
Yeah.
I think the season didn't go the way we wanted it to. And like I've been saying, we don't want to play in the Music City Bowl anymore. We don't play in bigger ones.
I agree.
And so that was kind of the vibe the whole week.
Right.
Iowa went to the extent, this is how serious they took it. I'm not saying we didn't take it serious, but we were just like, all right, we don't have everyone on the roster this week. It's kind of just a game. Let's go out there, try our best, have fun. And Iowa literally, I think the night before, they treated it like an actual away game. We stay at the Gaylord Opryland, and it's so big, both teams can stay there.
Oh, that place is crazy.
It's huge.
Now, I will say we got the nicer end because each player had their own room. They had to share rooms. Iowa did.
Oh,
UK does it right when we travel. Just putting that out there.
Shout out University of Kentucky.
But they literally left our hotel and stayed at the hotel, the whatever smaller hotel that you have, Holiday Inn, across the street the night before. Right. Iowa was wanting that revenge.
Yeah.
And I think maybe could we have taken it a little more serious, but given our circumstances of guys being injured, guys not playing, I think it was more so, I'd say more of a spring game for us where we get to try and see what we had for the next year.
Yeah. I had one more question about your season. How did it feel to actually win MVP of the Louisville game this past year?
That was nuts. I mean, so honored. It was so cool. I joke around with people that I share an award with Lamar Jackson and Geno Smith and Will Levis and Lynn Bowden. I joke with people like that all the time. And but it was so funny. So we had a great game, and it was just a really good way to cap off the season. Beating Louisville is always good, but just what happened to us this past year through the ups and downs and everything, I think to cap it off right there and go perfect 4 for 4, and again be an influential part of the game, it was just crazy. And I remember, so we're getting to like a minute left in the game, and our media person, we have 2 of them who kind of are like our liaisons with the media, was like, "Hey, stay on the field after the game," because usually after I've only lost Louisville once. So after every Governor's Cup, you find that trophy. I was one that always loved to be like in the front in that first picture, like where you get all the cameras lined up. And I always was holding the trophy or had some hand on the trophy. So they were like, stay on the field after the game. So I'm like lost. I'm confused. I'm like, there's no shot. Like I thought it was like a TV interview. What do you want to interview me for? Shouldn't you be interviewing like Stoops or the quarterback or someone? Why are you interviewing me? So like I'm kind of just walking around, don't know what was going on, and like I wanted to go for the trophy. And then like one of the media people found me, like, hey, stay here, stay with me. And I'm just like, come on, man, like I want to go celebrate with my teammates. Like this is fun,
Right.
And they're like, and then some of the other specialists like came over to me like, hey, dude, I think you won the MVP. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, all right. They're giving it to a kicker. And so they this lady and another guy from the Louisville Sports Commission come walking over with this bat, and I'm just like, all right, this is kind of cool. And they're like, hey, congratulations, you had a great game. They kind of explain the award, how it's basically all the media votes. I don't know if you guys are involved in voting for that or not.
I'm not.
I have no
No,
clue.
definitely not.
I was not.
I'm the most amateur person ever. I'm not even a part of sports media, in my opinion.
Well, hey, just say you were, and I'll like you guys so much more. So
okay, I voted. I did. I can redo
that.
We're gonna redo that. Yeah, Matt, I voted
That's
for you
why I
like
love you
15
guys.
times.
Thank you. So it was kind of cool because then they explained it to me, and like I said, after just that season, just we didn't perform the way we wanted to as a team. Obviously, we had such higher hopes, but just to end on that and be like, hey, like I won the MVP. It was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember after the game, my family actually got to come down on the field. They usually never let the families down on the field, but I think it was last game of the year. They were like, and I think it's non-conference. It's weird. There's so many like conference rules and non-conference rules. I never understand it. I just show up and kick a ball. But literally, my family got to come down on the field. I got to take pictures with them and everything, and they're wearing their Ruffolo 96 jerseys. They got these jerseys a long time ago, and I remember I forget which game it was, but I missed in that game, so they never wore them ever since then. They're like, dude, this is your last home game. We're wearing them, whatever. So honestly, maybe they should have worn them more often. I don't know. But they got to come down. But what was really cool so pictures on the field after and everything. I remember talking to my dad, and I was like, dude, this is like such a big honor. Like it was cool, kind of go out at Kentucky and you get to be the MVP and everything. And they even told me like when they were walking down through the tunnel or whatever, like the stairs, they heard it on like the PA, like Matt Ruffolo, Governor's Cup MVP or whatever they call it. And but I think the coolest part was I got to walk arm in arm with my dad out of the tunnel, and then have all those fans right there. My family got to follow behind me and everything, and they got to kind of see what it was like to go through the tunnel, go through that like big, like I don't know what you call it, like way of a lot of fans, and I got to sign autographs, take pictures, and everything. So it was just really cool, like you get to experience that as my last home game, and it was my last game ever because technically I didn't play in the whole game.
That's awesome.
So it was just cool to go out that way.
Right, that's great, dude. I had a question, but now it's gone. So you know what? Go ahead, Chris.
Oh no. How do you want people to remember you with your last season and your career at Kentucky?
I kind of want them to remember me as that, not the typical walk on, the walk on that came in, had a guy coming behind him, earned his spot, was consistent, was reliable, and someone that did it the right way. And what I mean by the right way is obviously coming in as a walk on, winning your spot, but not giving up. You see so many guys now that go in the transfer portal and just call it quits. I had those thoughts. I'll be honest. I had those thoughts, but I decided to stay and fight through the whole thing. And I just want to remember as the guy did the right way, was a good guy, broke the typical specialist stereotype where they're like the weird guys, they do their own thing. I always like to, like, for example, in the cafeteria, I'd always like to try to sit with different groups, try to get to know everyone on the team. I didn't want to be known as that weird kicker. I wanted to be known as like the dorky kicker that everyone loved. And I truly think even like last year, like if we missed, guys still loved me. And, personally, I don't know if they really truly did love me. I felt the love. But I just want to be remembered as someone who did it the right way, didn't do anything stupid during his career, and went out with a bang.
Hey, let me be real with you for a second, man. I'm not saying this just because you're on our podcast. I think a lot of people feel this way. I think I'm going to remember you, and I think Chris will too, as being a guy who was really resilient. Because seeing you do what you did in the Louisville game, even after a year that was so up and down, and you coming from a walk-on, going as far as you did, man, I think that's really says a lot about the kind of worker you are, and I think it's a lot for something people need to really, consider.
Yeah, man, I truly appreciate those words. I mean, they mean a lot. And I think they particularly mean a lot for just the UK mentality. I always love to mention, and I keep mentioning the blue collar mentality. You can push us around, knock us down, but you see it all the time. Coaches like, Kentucky is the most physical game of the year. Every single year, you see it all the time. Kirby Smart says it every single time. He's like, hey, I know we're successful against Kentucky, but guess what? It's the most physical game of the year. And you say that word resilient, and I think that goes, you can say that for me, but I think it goes for our team as a whole. Push us down, guess what? We're coming back tougher and stronger every single time.
And speaking
Georgia, I just want to say, we said it last time, Chris, that Georgia win's happening at some point. I really think it is.
Yeah.
For sure.
We get closer and closer every year, it feels like, dude. It really does.
Yeah.
I think it probably will not happen away. That's such a tough environment.
I think it would happen this year if it was at home. Is what I think.
Oh, yeah. I tell people when I was there, I think there was only one time, and I think it was my freshman year, where they absolutely killed us. But every other year was within like a touchdown or two. So there's going to be one of those games, like we were saying at the when we played there last time, the first Citrus Bowl year in 2021. We were saying it's one of those games where if you take away some of those mistakes, the game would have been a lot closer. So basically, what I'm saying is you got to play Georgia perfectly. I remember, like, for example, if it was still 0-0, maybe first or second quarter, I know it was first half, they throw a pass, and the guy technically caught it, and he fumbled it, but everyone thought it was an incomplete pass. And I just remember we are yelling. I never yell. We are yelling from the sideline. Like, I think it was Jaquez Jones or someone, and I don't blame him. He had no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
We're just yelling at him to pick up the ball, and he just is standing there. I mean, they thought they made a good play, incomplete pass, and I just see this Georgia player come like flying in because he must have heard it from someone, and it was like little things like that. So basically, he caught it, fumbled it, and they got the first down. We were thinking, it's incomplete. Didn't get the first down.
I knew that would be what you'd point out, but because wasn't that game? I mean, like, I think you could have scored a touchdown that because I think Levis was so close, but Levis doesn't get enough credit for that game. By the way, he kind of picked apart the Georgia secondary a little bit there.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But
I think it was 31-17, so it wasn't like terrible.
No, it was not at all. And the game at halftime was like 14-7. It was really, really close at halftime. Like, that first half was crazy.
I think we were like the only school to score like 2 touchdowns on Georgia or something.
For a long time until Alabama, I think. Until Alabama.
Yeah. Some crazy stat.
You're right. It's coming.
Yeah.
I feel it, dude. Even 2020. Was it 2020 when they were at Kroger Field and it was like 14-3, 13-3, something like that?
I think Joey Gatewood was the starter.
14-3. I was the only one that scored that day.
There you go. There you go.
I think Joey Gatewood was starting that game. I think Terry was.
Yeah, dude. It's no offense to Joe or anything. I completely forgot about him because he came in and he left right away. He was a nice kid. Didn't say much, but that's the type of stuff I don't particularly like about this transfer portal. There should be a rule, and there might be, but you should only be allowed like one transfer or something, or you should be penalized for the amount of transfers you keep having.
I don't know if there is. I think it doesn't vary, Chris.
the rule is supposed to be where
It's a
you
gray area.
transfer you
So
have
many.
a one-time transfer, and then you don't have to sit out a year. But of course, if you're like a grad transfer or something, then
And there are like a bunch of exceptions, like my coach got fired.
yeah, stuff
Oh,
like that.
it used to be super hard to get those exceptions. Now it's like easy.
Yeah. Because then he went to Central Florida, didn't he?
Yeah,
And
he
then
went to
like
Central Florida to be
made
like
some sort of
wide receiver.
position change, and I think he even left the team at some point.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to offend him or anything, but that's the type
right.
of stuff I don't like, where guys are just bouncing around. I
I
don't want to call them quitters, but in my opinion, you're kind of a quitter if you don't want to stay in and battle it out. Like, for example, for me, I easily could have transferred like that 2019 year. I took over for Chance, but people don't realize I lost it after that Missouri game where I had a unfortunate game. And
Mm.
so I had to wait a few more games to get it back. So I easily could have been like, you know what? I'm done. I'll just transfer. I have some film now. I can go somewhere else.
yeah.
Right.
But I decided to stay and stick it out.
Yeah, well, we were
Worked out pretty
happy
well.
that you did stay, because you
Yeah, kind of saved us a few games probably.
had a great career at Kentucky for sure, especially the Louisville game. But let's start talking about the season for a little bit. What do you think Kentucky's record will be this upcoming year? Both Nolan and I
I
predicted.
knew that question was coming. I knew that question
Yeah,
was
it
coming.
it is kind of just like generic. It's kind of just a thing that
So
you have to ask.
I'm one of those guys that does not like to set the bar high. I
Right.
remember the Citrus Bowl, the 2021 year. Sorry, I keep talking to Bowl.
Yeah,
I remember I went up to Coach White and I was like, "Hey, Coach!" Like they were about to do like 7-on or something, and the kickers just got done with our practice in the stadium, and so we were coming over and it was the end of practice, and so go up to Coach White and I'm like, "Hey, how's the defense looking?" And honestly, I kind of knew how they were looking. I just
Mm.
wanted to hear from the D coordinator, and he was like completely honest. He's like, "Dude, I don't know, man. We're not looking good. We're not looking good at all." They turned out being like really good, and he was just like, "I just like to set the bar low. Always set the
Mm.
bar low." And I think we learned that last year, where people were hyping us up a little too much.
yeah,
So, in my opinion, just based off how the schedule works and just being a part of it, like for example, Mississippi State, we haven't won there, and I think since the early 2000s, someone told me or something.
Yeah, Stoops I know has
Um,
never won.
Now, hopefully, they can change that this season. I'm hoping. I really think they can. But that's just one of those things how I look at the schedule. So if I had to take a prediction, because I know like right now they're hyping them up again. Like Kurt Herbstreit said something the other day.
Yeah.
I know a lot of fans are probably obviously everyone wants 12-0. A lot
yeah.
of fans probably are thinking 9-3, 10-2. I'm going to be conservative. I'm thinking 8-4. I think the worst we could. I think the worst we can do is 7-5. The best we can do probably is 10-2.
There's
Yeah.
the hat trick right there.
Yeah, there's a hat trick. Yeah, last year I predicted UK to go 9-3. Of course, sadly that did not happen. So hopefully I'm not like 2 games off in the.
I just it's hard because I have it pulled up because I knew you were going to ask this question.
Yeah.
Um,
I think if
it's
UK they want to go at least 8-4, they need to win at least their first
well,
5.
we can go through the schedule here. Knock on wood, they should start 4-0. All right, you have Florida at home. That should be a win, but I will tell you, beating the team 3 years in a row is pretty hard.
Yeah.
All right,
Mhm.
but I'm going to give it to them. All right, so you got 5-0. You go to Georgia. That's at Georgia. A tough one. You go 5-1. Missouri at home. Missouri loves to play us well every year. That should be a win, though.
Yeah.
Tennessee at home. We're going to hold off on that for right now. I'm very mixed about that game. We got to see how Tennessee's going to be. They're hyping them up again this year. Who knows how good they're going to be? We always play them well.
Mhm.
I'm going to give us a loss at Mississippi State just because we haven't.
I think I predicted that too, didn't I, Chris?
Yeah, we all predicted.
And I hope to God we break the trend this year. But it's I just remember going down there every single year. We were the better team, and somehow we don't get the job done.
Will Levis, Levis's worst game he ever played at Kentucky was at Mississippi State in 2021.
Yeah. I mean, that was such a bad game. But their air raid offense was so gnarly that game. It was crazy. Our defense was so drained.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Mike Leach. Alabama at home. I think we're going to lose that one. So it really comes down to the South Carolina and Tennessee games. I think we squeeze one of them out. And then obviously I think we beat Louisville. So I really think 9-3, 8-4. It's hard to predict because sometimes just knowing being a part of the team, if we lose a certain game, some guys lose momentum, unfortunately, and it happens everywhere. And the other thing too about the Tennessee game is ever since I was there, we were horrendous after a bye week, and the Tennessee were coming off a bye week. And like I said, I hope these things change, and it's starting to turn around as the years go by. But that is my humble prediction, and hopefully we prove me wrong. I want to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I want to do better than 8-4 for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm worried about the game after Georgia too, because usually after that game, it feels like historically, it does feel like doesn't go the way that maybe we anticipated.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. Well, we're all predicting 8-4 this upcoming year. Hopefully, UK does better than that, though. Do you have anything else, Nolan, you would like to add to Matt, or same with you, Matt? Anything else you would like to add to the podcast?
I've got nothing.
Yeah. Well,
I'm good.
we appreciate you.
I was sorry. Go ahead.
There's a lag, I think. A little lag, my bad. I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate you guys having me on. It's cool. I love just come on, talk about my experience at UK and the season at hand now. And hopefully I'll see you guys there. What's cool about former players is we get 2 tickets, I think a sideline pass or something. So I'm going to try to make every home game.
Yeah.
So hopefully I will see you guys there. And just again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. I had a lot of fun talking to you. I'm glad we got to, like you said, actually go in depth, just kind of just shoot a bunch of bull crap, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, and hopefully we'll have, more former players on the podcast, and hopefully we'll get to see you this upcoming year at some games like you were saying.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for watching. If you all are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it's on there as well, also on YouTube. So make sure you all watch this, and thank you all for listening.
See ya.